enjoy the outdoors, but businesses can't keep up with the demand.
Shooting victims' families are pushing for donations to be sent their way faster. We've seen this happen here before. A conservative group sues to stop the MLB All-Star Game in Denver. It sends its local allies scrambling for some distance. As America finally learns about the Tulsa race massacre, we look at how Colorado came to terms a lot earlier with a terrible chapter in our history. A next viewer's question has us exploring the concept of double immunity from COVID. And street signs, they guide the twists and turns of our lives. So, are they allowed to deceive us?
That's my question too. Can a street sign lie?
What do you think? Can a street sign lie? We'll head out to find the answer next. Families who lost someone in the Boulder King Super shooting are speaking publicly again. They're now asking for Coloradans' support as those families try to access the money donated to nonprofits to help them. John Mackenzie, whose wife Lynn Murray was killed in that shooting, is asking the state to audit the funds. John just spoke to our Steve Staker about this, and Steve, he's getting support from some other people who have been in a similar spot.
Yeah, John says that he has support from other victims' families from this shooting, as well as many as 60 other family members of victims and victims themselves from other mass shootings. Now, we've heard calls like this in the past, especially after the Aurora Theater shooting. Back then, the governor had to step in and appoint a special administrator to make sure any donated money got distributed and then decide who got what of the money. Now, the main nonprofit that did the collecting here for the Boulder shooting, the Colorado Healing Fund, says it was founded in part to avoid situations like that and make sure what happened in Aurora didn't happen again.
The stresses of this aren't just psychological, they're physical. You know, I feel like I've aged 20 years in 2 months. You know, I don't even feel like I'm human anymore.
John Mackenzie lost the love of his life on March 22nd. In the days and weeks after, he says the loss continued.
I lost my job. My wife's no longer with us, so our income is now zero.
The Colorado Healing Fund, the nonprofit created by former Republican Attorney General Cynthia Kaufman to serve victims and the community following disasters like this, it's raised $4.3 million for Boulder, according to its executive director. So far, they've distributed about $700,000 of it. John started an advocacy group arguing it all ought to be distributed. He says that's what donors would want.
I just don't believe public intent is being fulfilled. There are a number of charities around the United States that do the right thing. You know, they collect money for victims, distribute 100% of it to the victims, and get out of the way. Get on with your life. God bless you.
The Healing Fund does it differently. The organization wouldn't speak to us on camera, but a board member explained that the nonprofit raises money to meet the long-term needs of everyone impacted. He says they distribute the money when a need is demonstrated and make sure the proper support is there.
To tell me you're going to determine my needs? You know, no. You have no idea what those are, not a clue. Healing is, for me, cauterizing a gaping wound, and that's about it. I'm going to have it the rest of my life.
Mackenzie wants more transparency from the organization and the ability to move on.
Do I feel like the right thing is being done? I think it's being talked about, but that's all. Clearly, it's not being done.
Now, Mackenzie says he also has questions for Community Foundation Boulder County, which was the beneficiary of your Word of Thanks microgiving campaign back in March. Talked to the CEO of that organization today. They announced today that they're giving a $500,000 grant to the Colorado Organization for Victim Assistance, which will divvy that money up, that $500,000 up between the 10 families. The CEO told me that is more money than what donors actually said. You had the choice when you were donating what you could give to. Of the people who said, I want to give to the victims, that actually represents more than what was collected in that case, Kyle.
So, Steve, in the case of the Community Foundation in Boulder County, I know they were clear from the start that they kind of saw it as a 3-level situation. You had level 1, those 10 families. Level 2, other people impacted, store employees, folks who were there that day, folks in the neighborhood, that kind of thing. And then level 3, kind of last, was broader community healing in the end. And the question was just how would they divvy it up between those 3 levels?
Yeah, and in this case, they decided with the initial funds they have, they still are collecting money, but with what they have initially was to give a third of that to that group of victims, and then with the remaining $1 million, spread that among the needs of the people who are surrounding and the needs of the community as Boulder continues to recover from this, which is also what the Colorado Healing Fund says its goal is in all of this, to try to support everyone impacted who are going to have needs on a long-term basis.
This begins a new chapter of those conversations, hearing from John. Thank you, Steve. Coors Field is going to be at full capacity next month when it welcomes